As a Christian wife, I find submitting in my marriage completely liberating. Let me explain. So, I handpicked my husband. I was not forced into marriage with him. I trust my own judgment. So, naturally, I trust his ability to lead our family in the right direction. I'm confident that he is not going to lead us astray. And I just don't understand why that would be a controversial take when I trust my own judgment in selecting the right spouse.
In the late 1950s, Tulsa, Oklahoma was home to a teenage girl named Luann Earl, but to friends and family she was simply Penny. Raised on the unwritten rules of a strict religious household, Penny's life moved to a rhythm set by tradition. Yet within the restrictions of the Bible Belt, Penny found her own way to shine. She became a fixture in her school's clubs, known for her participation and enthusiasm. She also had her organ lessons to keep her busy, and her passion for music was evident in the way she played. Despite her love for music, Penny would never dare to dance, let alone slow dance, and certainly not with a boy. Her family's strict Baptist faith didn't allow for such freedoms. But she didn't let this dampen her spirit. At school, Penny was everywhere, joining clubs, contributing to activities, and making her mark. After her high school graduation in 1959, Penny carried her enthusiasm to the University of Tulsa. There, she quickly became a part of the campus scene, embracing sorority life with open arms. It was in this new chapter that she met Roger Scaggs, a fellow student dedicated to his studies in management and marketing. Their meeting was unassuming, but it was the beginning of a story that would unfold in unexpected ways. In 1961, Roger and Penny got married, ready to build a life together. But just months into their marriage, Roger enrolled in the Air Force, and Penny dropped out of college to support him, falling into the role of a traditional wife. They didn't just move houses, they hopped continents, from the suburbs of America to the streets of Japan. Roger was learning new skills in the area of computer sciences. When he traded in his uniform for a suit, those skills paid off. They moved wherever his jobs took them, Texas, New York, even Vietnam. Penny was the rock through it all, packing and unpacking, making a dozen new houses feel like home in just as many years. And then there was Sarah, the little girl they adopted, who added a new kind of joy to their life. Finally, they settled down in Plano, Texas. Roger's job at Electronic Data Systems was the anchor they'd been searching for. EDS was the brainchild of Ross Perot, who would later make a third-party bid for the presidency in 1992. Roger's role there was all-consuming, long hours, endless dedication, and trips that came up out of the blue. It was perhaps this relentless pace that led Penny to seek advice when she felt their marriage had hit a rough patch. She turned to the lectures of Linda Dillow, an author whose views on marriage resonated with her. Dillow's teachings are rooted in the idea of a so-called godly wife, a woman who embraces a submissive role in the marriage, supporting her husband and upholding the family's values. She encourages wives to focus on changing themselves to improve their marital relationship, rather than trying to change their husbands. Dillow says, quote, "Sometimes what is most important to us is not obvious and can be seen only by how we respond to our husbands in everyday life." So when Roger left EDS in search of new opportunities, Penny, influenced by Dillow's principles, played her part. She left the significant family decisions to Roger, trusting in his leadership as the head of the household. In 1984, they packed up once more, this time setting their sights on Austin, Texas. Penny's quest for marital harmony led her to a profound connection with Linda Dillow's teachings. So much so, she began to share this philosophy with others, starting her own seminars for Christian wives. As members of a Southern Baptist church, Penny and Roger were a part of the congregation that still held firm to certain marital beliefs. They believed a wife should, quote, graciously submit to her husband's leadership, a principle that Penny took to heart. She counseled new brides on the 3 A's. Always give your husband admiration, acceptance, and authority. To Penny, these were the pillars of a godly marriage. She taught that a wife's trust and obedience to her husband were paramount, second only to God. In this hierarchy, the husband came before children, home, self, and any outside commitments like a job or community activities. Penny advised that husbands might face temptation from attractive women at work. To counter this, she said wives should always greet their husbands looking their best, with a hot meal ready no matter the time, and be a willing sexual partner, even if they weren't in the mood. According to her, the success of the marriage rested on the wife's shoulders, and it was her duty to nurture and sustain it. So when daughter Sarah's teenage rebellion took hold, it became a huge concern for Penny. Sarah began to challenge the boundaries set by her parents, missing curfews and adopting a gothic style with dark clothes and makeup. In addition, her curiosity about her birth mother was growing. Penny saw this as a clear sign of satanic influence. In a desperate bid to realign her daughter's path, Penny sent Sarah to a school known for its rigid discipline and spiritual teachings. Christian Gateway's Farm for Girls was a place where hard labor on the farm and intense prayer sessions were the norm, and speaking in tongues was as common as algebra. But the school's approach to healing, relying solely on prayer, proved dangerously inadequate when Sarah contracted a severe case of poison ivy. The rash spread unchecked, leading to an emergency hospital visit. The school limited visits from the parents, so they were unaware of the neglect occurring at the farm. This narrative is a common thread in the stories of many families who turn to such institutions. The children often return with PTSD and stories of abuse. Girls who attended this particular camp would later allege horrific conditions. They claimed they were forced to dig ditches for hours straight, and any form of disobedience would result in being sent to isolation rooms, filled only with the sounds of Bible verses being played loudly on repeat. They claimed to have been denied food and access to feminine sanitary products. When Sarah returned home 2 years later at age 17, it was clear that the school's promise of transformation had fallen short. Far from becoming the obedient, service-ready young woman Penny had hoped for, Sarah's experience at the school had only deepened the divide. Nevertheless, Sarah agreed to attend Concordia, a well-known Christian university, upon her return. The university's mission is to create so-called Christian leaders through a teaching model where the university prepares students to serve the mission of the church. Penny and Roger, meanwhile, had found a new church family at the First Evangelical Church of Austin. Penny's seminars were a hit there, and Roger even got asked to be on the board of elders. They took a trip to Europe, hoping for a little rest and relaxation. But when they got back, they found out Sarah had dropped out of Concordia and was now at a local community college. Penny was distressed. The secular education was a far cry from what she had envisioned for her daughter. But the real shock came when Sarah took a job as a waitress in an adult entertainment club. Penny, horrified by this turn of events, issued an ultimatum: quit or move out. Standing her ground, Sarah chose independence over compliance. Roger supported Sarah, quietly hoping Penny's anger might soften. He was there for Sarah, helping her move and lending her money when she needed it. When cancer struck Roger's mother, he wanted her to move into their home. But Penny, uncharacteristically, stood firm against the idea, leading Roger to make the difficult choice of an assisted living facility. That decision didn't sit well with him, though, and it started to eat away at their marriage. Things seemed to look up, however, when Sarah announced she was getting married. They threw themselves into planning a big wedding, a welcome distraction for everyone. Around the same time, Roger picked up a new hobby, flying. Penny thought a computer flight simulator would be enough, but Roger went all in and got his pilot's license, then a plane. Penny panicked and demanded to see all their financial records, fearing she'd be left alone if Roger's new passion took a tragic turn. Sarah's wedding was a brief high point before things came crashing down again. Just a month later, Sarah's marriage was over, and she was heading to Florida to start fresh. Penny was devastated. She told a friend that Sarah was no longer welcome at home. Breaking a marriage vow was unforgivable in her eyes. With Sarah gone, Roger suggested downsizing, selling the big house for something cozier. But no offers came, and Penny took it as a sign from God they were meant to stay. And maybe, just maybe, Roger saw the writing on the wall. Penny's reaction to the divorce, her new insight into the family finances, it all pointed to one thing. If Roger ever thought about leaving, it wouldn't be easy or quiet. Roger's life took a turn that many would call a midlife crisis. He found a new thrill in motorcycles, splurged on a shiny Lexus, and spent his days sailing or flying. A beard appeared on his face, a symbol of the change he felt within, which he claimed made him more attractive. But it wasn't just his appearance that changed. Roger was now entangled in an affair with Vanessa Ferguson, a woman from work that was much younger, closer to Sarah's age. She offered him the intimacy he said he was missing at home, what he called animal lust, a purely physical connection with no strings attached. Though whispers of the affair spread, it remained an unspoken truth. As autumn leaves began to fall, so did Penny's health. A stubborn respiratory infection got worse and worse. Roger was away on business when the neighbors, concerned, urged her to go to the hospital. Stubborn as ever, Penny refused, only relenting when her doctor agreed to a house call. She was placed on antibiotics and contacted Roger, telling him she was sick. But instead of rushing to her side, he chose work, leaving Penny alone and feeling abandoned in her time of need. Penny was disappointed that her illness forced her to put her classes on hold. However, she began the year 1996 on a positive note, resuming her ministry work, which brought her a sense of purpose and fulfillment. Despite this, Roger was away from home more and more, leaving Penny feeling increasingly isolated. In a bid to save her marriage, she decided to seek marital counseling, but not through their usual church. This was a secret endeavor. Not even her closest friends, family, or church members knew about it. In early March, Penny joined a church retreat, leading the arts and crafts activities for the children's summer camp. On the retreat's final day, she received a phone call that left her visibly upset and in a hurry to leave, though the details of the conversation remained a mystery. Normally a cautious driver, Penny's uncharacteristic speeding on the way home alarmed the other women in the car. Whatever the issue may have been, she seemingly shrugged it off and refocused on her upcoming class scheduled for Thursday, March 7th, which promised to be her largest yet. She dedicated Wednesday to preparing for it. Meanwhile, Roger was busy preparing for an important presentation on Thursday and planned to stay late at the office. Penny suggested they meet for lunch to give him a relaxing break during his workday. Penny met up with a friend and they spent the morning browsing a craft store, enjoying their shared hobby. Around noon, Roger called, prompting Penny to head home. They shared a simple lunch of soup before Roger returned to the office. Later in the day, he called again, informing Penny that he would be working late into the night. Penny suggested he come home for dinner to break up his long hours, and Roger agreed. That evening at 9:15 p.m., a distressing 911 call was made.
I just got home from work and my wife's lying on the floor and with blood everywhere. It looked like she's dead.
Roger, in a state of shock, had gone to the neighbor's house and waited for the police to arrive. They found Penny lying near the baby grand piano, a place where she had often played music. The first responders walked into a horrific scene. Penny had suffered severe injuries. She was stabbed and slashed, but it appeared that what had caused her death was blunt force trauma to the head. When the detectives arrived, they asked Roger to accompany them to the police station to provide a full statement. Roger recounted that after dinner, he had helped Penny wash up and then change clothes before heading back to the office. He claimed to have spent the entire night there, diligently working on his presentation and materials for the next day's meeting. However, the detectives found his account to be unusually precise, almost rehearsed. They also noticed that Roger's distress seemed to surface only when he caught someone looking at him, as if he was consciously trying to appear upset. This behavior raised their suspicions, prompting them to take a closer look at Roger. They decided to monitor his actions over the next few days, subtly questioning him several more times without raising alarm.
We've done everything together all our life, both active in the church, and we've had a wonderful relationship.
Roger took charge of the funeral arrangements, insisting that Penny be laid to rest next to her parents. They had already purchased a plot, and the funeral director even managed to exchange it so that Roger could secure 2 adjacent plots for him and Penny. However, it struck everyone as odd that Roger didn't want 2 plots, suggesting he didn't plan to be buried next to his wife of 35 years. Just 3 days after the murder, Roger mentioned to his sister-in-law that he intended to remarry. Understandably, she was taken aback by his readiness to discuss such plans so soon after Penny's tragic death. Roger initially didn't even plan on attending Penny's burial, saying her parents didn't want him there. But he reconsidered, saying that Sarah would be upset with him if he didn't go. He also pressured the police to allow him back into the house to take an inventory for, quote, insurance reasons. During his interactions with the police, Roger admitted to having an affair but claimed it had ended. The casual manner in which he mentioned the affair heightened suspicions among the detectives. At the burial, Roger's choice of attire, a motorcycle leather jacket emblazoned with a large eagle and American flag, stood out, even though the family had agreed on a less formal dress code. Despite these odd behaviors, Penny's family did not suspect Roger's involvement in her death, but the police continued their investigation, digging deeper into his actions and statements. The police were thorough in their investigation, leaving no stone unturned. They informed Roger that they needed to eliminate him as a suspect, but the more they dug, the more evidence pointed to his involvement. The medical examiner determined that Penny's time of death was within the time frame Roger was at the house for dinner, based on the digestion of her food. In a twist of fate, the garbage pickup service had missed the scheduled pickup at Roger's office that night. The police seized this opportunity, ordering the dumpsters to be removed and replaced so they could search them without arousing suspicion. During this search, Roger mentioned that some of Penny's jewelry was missing, suggesting it could have been a robbery gone wrong. However, when the police found the supposedly missing jewelry in a garbage bag in the office dumpster, they had enough evidence to arrest Roger. They also had discovered the murder weapon, a large section of metal piping, and the most damning piece of evidence, latex gloves with Roger's fingerprints on the inside. Roger was charged with first-degree murder but maintained his innocence. The investigation revealed that the stab wounds were inflicted post-mortem, a detail that, in other Texas jurisdictions, might have led to the prosecution seeking the death penalty due to the brutal nature of the crime. Texas has issued the most death sentences in the U.S. since the death penalty was reinstated in 1976. However, Austin's approach differs from the rest of the state. Roger, not being considered a flight risk, had his bail reduced from $1 million to $500,000 and eventually to $250,000. Roger managed to post bail, sold the family home, and moved into a condo while awaiting trial. He assembled a large legal team, with his defense costs estimated to exceed $1 million. Despite claiming to have ended his affair, Roger was frequently seen around town with Vanessa, indulging in activities like manicures and tanning sessions, all while asserting his innocence. His lawyers successfully delayed the trial multiple times on various technicalities, often citing scheduling conflicts due to the large size of the legal team. The prosecution's evidence was strong, but delays in lab results further postponed the trial. Over a year passed, and just 4 days before jury selection was set to begin, Vanessa Ferguson disappeared. Since she had not been formally subpoenaed, her disappearance did not constitute a legal violation. Roger's legal team claimed ignorance about her whereabouts, and, to this day, her fate remains unknown. After numerous delays and much drama, the trial was finally scheduled to begin in October of 1998. The trial quickly became a local sensation, and when Court TV picked it up, it turned into a full-blown media circus. The judge allowed them only one camera in the courtroom to minimize distractions. The defense team focused on discrediting the DNA evidence, which was still relatively new at the time. They argued that inconclusive DNA results, particularly from a speck of watery blood with another DNA profile, effectively eliminated Roger as a suspect or suggested mishandling. In contrast, the prosecution presented compelling evidence, including the glove with Penny's blood on the outside and Roger's fingerprint on the inside. They highlighted Roger's motive and opportunity, pointing to his affair and the established time of death. Numerous witnesses, including neighbors and longtime acquaintances, testified about Roger's drastic changes and Penny's desperate attempts to save their marriage due to her strong beliefs in a woman's subservient role. The defense countered that adultery did not equate to murder, even demonstrating the significant force required to commit the crime, questioning how the jury could possibly believe Roger capable of such an act. They also criticized the police for not considering other suspects first and called character witnesses to vouch for Roger. On November 12th at 2 p.m., the trial concluded, and the jury was sent to deliberate. The jury deliberated for 7 hours, making it a long night for everyone involved. Expectations were set for another lengthy day of waiting, but surprisingly, the jury returned after just 2 hours. Friday the 13th had resulted in a verdict, guilty of first-degree murder. Penny's family felt a wave of relief, while Sarah quietly hugged her father, tears streaming down her face as he was led from the courtroom. At the sentencing, Penny's sisters sat in the front row, wearing pins they had crafted from 1996 pennies. Roger chose to exercise his right to have the jury decide his sentence. The jury had 2 options: life in prison without parole, or a term of anywhere from 5 to 99 years, with eligibility for parole only after serving half the sentence. They listened to victim impact statements urging a severe punishment, highlighting how Roger had lived freely for 3 years before the trial, and then character witnesses for Roger, who pleaded for mercy. Ultimately, the jury decided on a 32-year sentence, making Roger eligible for parole at 75 years old. After numerous unsuccessful appeals, Roger chose not to pursue further appeals in 2005. He became eligible for parole in 2014, and Penny's sisters vowed to oppose his release. Sarah continued to visit her father in prison, where he led a Bible study group and claimed to mentor young men, teaching them various life skills. Penny's family and Sarah have attempted to reconcile, agreeing to disagree about Roger's role in Penny's death. Now 85 years old, Roger is incarcerated at the Wallace Unit, a remote medium-security prison in central Texas. With his maximum sentence ending in 2030, when he will be 91, it is highly likely that Roger Scaggs will spend the rest of his life in prison. And that's the story of Roger and Penny Scaggs. It's a tragic tale of a marriage that was supposed to be rooted in faith and moral values, yet ended in such a devastating and evil way. What do you think led to this drastic downfall? How do you reconcile the image of a so-called godly marriage with the actions that took place? Do you believe there were signs that were missed, or was this a case of hidden darkness coming to light? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more. As always, you can share your opinions or suggestions in the comments. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for our next video, where we'll explore another story hidden within the wrinkles in crime.